China is a massive and influential market. It is also a state of censorship, suppression of free speech, harassment of journalists, a country where the people are subjected to secret arrests, back alley trials, brutality by its police, and yes, even torture. Human rights abused by a totalitarian government overseen by President Xi Jinping, a man so spiteful he banned any and all products of Winnie the Pooh after someone made a joke about them looking similar. But because of China's increased global influence, we see more and more companies like Activision Blizzard bending the knee in order to appease their overlords. Not just ignoring the abuse going on in the nation, but in their silence actively support and condone it in order to profit off of the untapped market within their country. It's no secret China is a massive market to media and sports outlets. Movies hire more and more Asian actors, try to incorporate more and more Chinese locations within their productions, and try to tailor their movies to appeal to China as an audience. It's why the Ancient One in the film Doctor Strange went from being a Tibetan monk to being a Caucasian woman played by Tilda Swinton. It's why video games are compromising their vision in order to market themselves there. It's why that Venom movie is getting a sequel. The list goes on. You make it in China, and you don't need to make it anywhere else. There is a lot of money to be made in China, but in the sacrifice to profiteer off of them, companies have turned into grovelling little cowards that won't do something as simple as, I don't know, condemn human rights abuse or support democracy. Activision Blizzard is one such company. China is in the middle of a political protest over a proposed bill that would see the extradition of Hong Kong suspects to China, something that has been met with much backlash. While the bill has been withdrawn and, at the time of speaking, has not been resubmitted with amendments, protests remain ongoing with additional demands, mainly the release and exoneration of protesters, the withdrawal of referring to protesters in the media as rioters, an unbiased investigation into accounts of police brutality conducted by third parties, etc, etc. You know, basic human rights stuff. Activision Blizzard is firmly against these protests. Activision Blizzard is firmly against democracy. Activision Blizzard is firmly against human rights. This is a harsh statement to be sure, but it is a statement nonetheless made by Activision Blizzard themselves following their recent actions. Whether they meant to make this statement or not, Activision Blizzard sent a very clear message to its audience and consumers when it decided to ban one of its pro-Hearthstone players for speaking in favour of the Hong Kong protests in China. At this point, most of you will have heard about this, but for the sake of the few who haven't, as well as preservation's sake, I will go over it here. Professional Hearthstone player Blitz Chung, while live streaming, donned a mask in support of the protests and yelled, "Liberate Hong Kong, democracy in our time." Now, the appropriateness of his choice to bring politics into such a live stream, meant to entertain, could be debated until the cows come home. I know for a fact that myself and Levi have both flip-flopped on it. On the one hand, it was a non-political platform. On the other, he chose to use his influence on a platform that had a mass audience to spread awareness across the world and took advantage of the opportunities given to him. What cannot be debated is Activision's response to his political statement in favour of human rights and democracy. Activision Blizzard, you see, in the wake of this, suspended Blitz Chung from the official Hearthstone competition for a year and edited it out of the broadcast, withheld prize money that the man was rightfully owed by the company, and severed its ties completely with the two casters that shared the livestream with him. In a pathetically cowardly move, the company hid behind a broad and vague rule in its code of conduct that stated that at Blizzard's sole discretion, they could bring down the hammer of punishment upon anyone that brings into disrepute or offends a section of the public. Of course, the only people that could be offended by this political statement would be, well, the Chinese government. Their actions were totally knee-jerk in response, and was made simply to appease government outcry that did not exist. It was just Blizzard panicking in order to silence anyone threatening the lucrative money-making enterprise the company held within China's market. For this, the company has received an extensive and rightfully owed backlash for selling out human rights and decency in order to lick the boots of an oppressive tyrannical government so they can profiteer from their country. The slimy little worms have actively punished free speech and by extension have condoned the condemnation of basic human rights in order to make more money. Blizzard have claimed they have stayed apolitical in this, hiding again behind the clause in their contract. Problem is, you cannot make an apolitical response to a political statement, you idiots. The response, whether you intended it or not, is the statement. Activision Blizzard, in its fear of losing money, chose to support a tyrannical government that actively suppresses free speech and brutally oppresses its people with an iron fist. That is the hill this company chose to die on when it censored Blitzchung. And of course, as anyone with half a brain could see, in the fallout of the company's attempts to censor Blitzchung's message, the backlash only led to what we call the Streisand effect, where a party's attempt to quell and censor information only serves to spread it faster. Two college live streamers during a Hearthstone stream held up a sign which read "Free Hong Kong, boycott Blizz" in defiance of Blizzard's punishment, and were prepared to quit in protest. Two 19-year-old college students showing more awareness for basic human rights than a global trading company ever would. And the protest was edited from the broadcast, which sent #BoycottBlizzard trending on Twitter. And just as I was editing this video altogether, just to prove that Activision Blizzard are complete idiots who just don't want to learn their lesson, I have heard that these people have now been banned from the tournament as well for 6 months. And I would just like to say a big salute to Casey, Corwin Dark and TJ Hammer for their solidarity on the matter and for not bowing down in cowardice to their overlords like Activision Blizzard cowered down to theirs. The explosion caused a span of "Liberate Hong Kong" in the chat rooms of all live streams of Hearthstone, and at least one popular Hearthstone caster, Brian Kibler, has indeed quit in protest over this. While I was editing this, I heard that they have actually started banning people from the chat if they even mention China or Hong Kong or the protest or anything along those lines, once again trying to censor free speech. But oh, the best part was yet to come. In an attempt to actively sabotage Activision Blizzard's success of Overwatch in China, the video game community have gone about turning one of its characters, Mei, into an icon of Hong Kong protest. Yep, in protest of China and Activision Blizzard's attempt to silence free speech, Reddit user Omega Lulit uploaded an official Overwatch short only edited to show Mei reacting in support of the protests of Hong Kong. And this is where it got so juicy, as artists began uploading fan art after fan art depicting Mei decked out in attire symbolising the ones worn during the protests of Hong Kong. See, what makes this oh so good and so fitting is that China, as I've said, is infamous for the censorship of media in its country, all in the name of controlling their message and quelling potential uprising, going as far as to ban Winnie the Pooh out of spite, the insecure childish shiitake mushroom head that the president is. So I imagine that if there is enough of a push for Mei to become a symbol of Hong Kong protest, there's a very real chance that Activision Blizzard could see their products becoming banned in China because of this. A move thoroughly deserved for what was an attempt to quell free speech. God, I love you guys sometimes. I love the video game community. After a week's silence, Activision Blizzard decided to respond by reducing the sentence of Blitzchung from 1 year to 6 months, and also walked back the permanent severance of the two casters that they had parted ways with, agreeing to give them a 6-month suspension as well as return the money that was owed to Blitzchung. But not before having him toe the line by apologising and say that he'll be more careful about what he says from now on, which only serves to enhance the message that this parasitic company is trying to convey to people. In the future, you toe the line or we punish you. And after all this, Activision Blizzard have tried to claim that China had no influence on its decision making, claiming regardless of which side would be taken, the punishment would have remained the same. Making that statement, you are saying that any divisive statement is punishable. But do you think the company would have punished someone who, say, spoke up for something like gay rights, gay marriage, trans rights, women's rights? All these things in themselves are indeed divisive, even if it was to upset a certain bigoted section of the audience. I don't imagine Activision Blizzard would ever act upon any of these sorts of subjects. Imagine if Blitzchung had spoken up about the support of gay marriage. Do you think he would have got suspended for that? Of course not. And someone still has the gall to claim that every voice counts. Yeah, that's an official statement, by the way. Look at that. No, you can't do that. You can't issue this statement and then start banning the people who start using free speech and protest in your live streams. You can't have it both ways, Blizzard, so which are you? And it's obvious that they are in favour of the opposite when it brings their oppressive boot down on anyone who threatens their financial interest, even if it is the country of an insecure poohead. And the backlash is still ongoing and has seen Activision Blizzard pull themselves from the Nintendo's live press conference, which is hilarious, and also many rumours of protests and boycotts of BlizzCon. I didn't even know that BlizzCon could become even more funny than it was last year. I'm really looking forward to this now. Make no mistake, Activision Blizzard have chosen their side. They chose to silence free speech. They deserve every bit of the backlash they got. By the way, free Hong Kong, democracy in our time, hashtag boycott Blizzard. You pretty much know where I stand on this. Activision Blizzard are scum, and we know this, but I feel that even this has pretty much surprised me in terms of its blatancy as to how low it will stoop in order to make money. Even if there was the slightest chance that this was made independent of China's influence, it doesn't change the message that Activision Blizzard are sending to people. This is a case of real suppression of speech, not the fake censorship that some gamers like to go on about over Tracer's bum. Real censorship. And it's disgusting. I didn't even mention the financial stakes that Chinese companies have in Western video games. Chinese companies like Tencent have their fingers in multiple Western video game company pies, all lining up to kiss their corporate behind. But all I can say is, please keep at it. Keep at it. Keep the art going. Do that protest. I hope the protest goes well. Unfortunately, I won't be there because I can't afford the flight. And I hope May gets so over that they do indeed ban Activision Blizzard video games in China, because it would be just such a great ending to all of this. Anyway guys, that's pretty much all I've got to say. You know where I stand on this very clearly, and I hope that you guys are enjoying the show and what I'm getting on with. I will be back to making more videos in the near future. I hope you guys will come back to watch some more. So until then, Geeks, Nerds and Gamers United, I am Adam of Milanus Media, and I have never been happier to be living in the country that I'm living in, where I can talk about the things I want to talk about without fear of oppression and censorship. And I'm proud to stand as the antithesis of everything that Activision Blizzard represents. I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.